Philippines. And this conference was referred to me by my thesis advisor, Dr. Michael Angelo from Manila. We're from De La Salle University, Manila. So here's our study on food waste management. And to further introduce it, this is actually like a second part of the study because we also use system dynamics. But this and yeah, we'll just discuss it later on. So the contents of my presentation are the following: just the introduction, a bit literature review, the methodology, and the data that we had, and the conclusions. So the source of this study was actually due to the widespread environmental degradation and the many unsustainable ways. And one proof actually is that in the Philippines, uh, there are 1,713 metric tons of food wasted, and this happens even when 23% of the population live below the national poverty line in 2021. So one way to address this issue is to have a proper food waste management. And in food waste management, this includes the food waste reduction. Other countries have already have their own waste management, like they have a proper waste segregation, anaerobic digestion, waste incineration, and composting. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, food waste are treated usually with the rest of the solid waste, or when not treated, they were just disposed to different landfills and dump sites, which is a problem given that the landfills are already at full capacity. So the waste management is actually governed by policy RA 9003. And this is a simple infographic on it where waste is generated by household and industries and then sent to disposal. And some are treated with materials recovery facilities or MRF. And some are for those with small municipalities, they are uh, collected with other smaller municipalities so that they can be disposed altogether. And this law is actually have faced many challenges upon implementation because first, it relies heavily on the resources and capabilities of respective local government units. And since we have a different allocation on different cities and municipalities, there are issues that arise such as technical, political, and financial limitations, as well as the other agencies. And this also has lack of participation from citizens and lack of awareness on waste segregation and disposal. Actually, in Metro Manila alone, where the capital is located, there is poor segregation and collection. And out of the 99 materials recovery facilities, only 28 are operational. So these are so under RA 9003 is where biodegradable waste, which has the food waste, are also is also the governing policy. And this is how it looks like that there's no segregation, as mentioned a while ago, and just sent to disposal. But back in 2019, there was a House Bill 370 or the Food Waste Reduction Act that was that was proposed where the edible food surplus are sent to food bank for donation, while the rest of the inedible food surplus are are considered food waste and sent for composting so that it can be treated well. But we know, as mentioned, there were already challenges in the implementation of RA 9003, and to ensure that those challenges may be overcome by House Bill 3370 once implemented, we really have to analyze it first and to make sure that this time we can properly implement it. So in order to do that, there was actually a study by Worldwide Fund for Nature that said that the food waste generation is linked to behavior. And mentioned earlier, there was lack of public participation and all that. That's why we will use a tool that can express the priorities of stakeholders, which is analytical hierarchy process, which can structure the problem and to capture the expert opinion of the stakeholders. So this presentation's objective is in consideration of the scenario that will gain the highest public participation. This study aimed to determine the most preferred food waste management of stakeholders through AHP. So these are just some studies that were used in the developing of the structure of this AHP model. So first was the study by Li et al. On food waste management in Hong Kong, China, where they considered food waste generation sector, the waste treatment and recycling sector, landfilling sector, and government expenditure sector to use it in system dynamics to check if the performance targets of the policies will be reached. And another set of studies were first the solid waste management in the Philippines, that only 48% of the households segregate their waste, and their opinion is that uh, when the waste is being collected, there's no separate vehicle for biodegradable waste or recyclable waste. It just ends up being mixed. So what's the point of segregation? And a study on AHP in India where they assess the collection and transportation, and they considered criteria such as collection means, cost, and public participation. And from this study, the most preferred collection by the compact was by the compact track from collection point to landfill. So noting all of this, uh, I have built the analytical hierarchy process structure with the goal of ranking the scenario alternatives with the criteria of financial viability. This includes all the cost and income from composting, social acceptability, whether the citizens or the private sector will embrace the food waste management and actually participate in it. Environmental sustainability is the criteria that reduces the food waste along every part of the chain. And lastly, technical enforceability is the ease of doing. Will an ordinary citizen be able to segregate their waste or be able to participate in such? And the scenario alternatives will be discussed individually, but just an overview. Versus scenario one is the multi-sectoral implementation. Scenario two is food waste composting, and scenario three is on food surplus donation. So the scenarios were all based on uh, the House Bill 3370 as well as the literature review. So for scenario one, it's like a combination of donation and composting and waste treatment. The composting is done in the MRFs and as well as composing in the facilities of the private sector. Scenario two focuses on all types of food waste. So this includes the edible food surplus to composting. And scenario three is focused on distribution of edible food surplus, which is focused on donation. So we sent out surveys to different participants. This includes citizens in Metro Manila, as well as the food industries in Metro Manila. This includes hotel and factories. And we also had policy making bodies. So from the government institution that is in charge of solid waste to know their opinions as well, their expert opinions on the matter. And once we have received the survey for the study, we we put the responses in a matrix and with the pairs comparison and iterated it until we get the following weights. So for the criteria weights, the highest weight that was obtained was for technical enforceability, followed by environmental sustainability, social acceptability. Then the least priority of the criteria is the financial viability. And we have also computed for the decision weights for for each criteria with a what does the each scenario weigh in. So these two tables were considered as matrix and were multiplied to get the final weights. And we got the highest weight for scenario three, which is the food donation of which got 0.4435, followed by composting, and lastly um the multi-sectoral implementation. So this just showed that scenario three is the food donation, and it is heavily it is heavily dependent on the industries since they were the ones who has the huge volume of uh, food surplus. For example, the leftovers from hotel buffets or from the processing industries. So this study just showed that scenario 3, where excess food is donated instead of discarded, was the most preferred option among the participants based on the criteria. And it was AHP was a useful tool to get the opinion of those in the industry and the citizens know whether they will be participating well in food waste management. So these are just some of the key references. And yeah, thank you for listening. So if you have any questions.
Hania?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, Anna.
Okay. Congratulations on this research. I think that this kind of research is not only very important in your city, but we can copy this on other cities and countries as well. Yeah, this is a big problem. I would like to ask you, about this model. If this decision model was for whom? Because I think that the first question that we need to respond for whom you want to present the results for city, for governments, for whom?
So hopefully it's for the government.
Okay, so if this is for the government to change something in the law, yeah. So I think that you might if you can present your model, the goal should be food waste management effectiveness. So how to effectively manage about the wasting of the food in our city, or yeah. So food waste management effectiveness, yeah. And I miss, what factor? Economic factor. You didn't include economic factor. So if you want to present and negotiate and motivate someone to change something, I think that for them, economic factor is important. And the question for you, whom invite as an experts? So it will be like very valuable, you might even prioritize the opinions of the experts to present what opinion gives, this, for example, this government, or this minister, or someone, to prioritize the experts and their opinions to receive the final decision. I think this is very important problem nowadays. So congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments as well.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. If anybody else has a question. Where the criteria come from? How do you decide them?
So I decided them based on the previous researchers on literature review actually, and it's not presented, but some were from the barriers that were faced by other studies on their waste management, and I just use those as a consideration for the criteria.
Yes, it's very useful if you can have the opinion of any expert once you are identify some of the criteria from the literature. Is also useful to have another expert view, just to see if the criteria are appropriate for the case study, because sometimes it's not the same. Even though in some literature there are some criteria that are very useful first, but then for the case study are not the best one. And have also a question regarding the financial of the money. In terms of the cost, how different are the alternatives? Do you more or less have an idea?
So the differences on the cost, the scenario 1 has the highest cost, given that it is a combination of scenario 2 and 3, composting and donation. And it will have the cost of the composting facilities and the MRFs, as well as the cost for maintaining the food bank. So, and then it is followed by composting because it has the highest highest overhead expenses. Well, and then lastly is the donation. And when we sent out this survey, actually that's one of the flaws of the survey, that we realized that we should have added the information to show information as an aid to the respondents.
Yes, that's very useful to include that. I mean, as much information as you can when you are presenting when you are in the evaluation process. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you so much for the
Even Tanya,
presentation. Very
when I
nice.
was
Yeah.
when I was listening to you, I even see in this model 4 models: models of benefits, opportunities for the society, for the government, for the local community, etc., opportunities and costs. So I think that this model is so complex model that for the future your research, think about 4 models and then connect them. It will be even better.
Very,
Thank you.
yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. Thank you. Very, very nice work.